All right, welcome into a special Monday night edition of the Field of 68s After Dark. We are presented by our partners over at Bet Rivers. And this is a special edition, not just because conference tournaments kicked off today with the NEC. I think Fairleigh Dickinson's season is over, but because we have brought in ESPN's Jeff Borzello, who just might have the best hair in all of college basketball. We've also brought in Terrence Oglesby, who might, well, he doesn't have any hair. Yeah, the worst hair. Whatever. I have some pretty bad hair too. We've also got both Chris Beard and Mark Adams coaching tonight. Not against each other, unfortunately, because that's always entertaining. But right now we've got Baylor barely beating Texas in Austin in the final game at the Irwin Center. Make sure you subscribe to After Dark on YouTube. You can also listen to the show each and every night on Sirius XM ESPN Radio Channel 84. But what we are going to get started with is something that nobody talks about in college hoops because most people don't know what the hell is going on with it. That's why we brought Borzello on, because Borzello is the expert, the absolute expert on hot seat talk.
Are you admitting that I know something about the hot seat?
I am. I taught you well. You were kind of my protege.
You complimented me just to set yourself up for a compliment.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay. Well, I feel like you killed it in your column. You know, it used to be where we would co-byline the column at ESPN. Sure. Now you've just taken it off.
I stole it.
You stole it. But listen, the hot seat talk is real. It's difficult sometimes to get good information. But we talk to a lot of coaches, a lot of people throughout the industry, trying to get as much info as we can. And let's start off. And Tio, you're going to do a lot of listening here. But we're gonna have you weigh in.
I would prefer to do a lot more listening.
Well, when Clemson and Brad Brunell comes up, we're going to get you involved. Don't you worry. For those who don't know, Terrence Oglesby was a former Clemson Tigers sharpshooter. On most nights, there were some nights when he wasn't so sharp in his shooting.
It wasn't for a lack of trying, though.
That's it. No, it definitely was not. The trigger was always there. All right, let's start with Louisville. The best job on the market, the best job that's going to be on the market because it is a top 10 job. And all the other top jobs, I think, Borzello, this carousel, they're probably not going to open up because they all did last year, most of them, right? I mean, Duke, Carolina, Arizona, Indiana, a lot of really good jobs popped last year.
UCLA 2 years ago,
UCLA
3 years ago at this point.
Yep.
Yeah. Not a lot.
UCLA might pop again. Listen.
That's related to Louisville.
Yes.
There we go. That's a good segue by you.
It is a good segue. Everybody thinks it's going to be Kenny Payne.
Right.
And that it was a given that it was going to be Kenny Payne, who played at Louisville, who is absolutely adored everywhere he goes. Louisville, assistant at Kentucky, now with the Knicks. How confident are you, Jeff Borzello, that Kenny Payne is going to be the next head coach at Louisville?
Less confident than I was like 3 weeks ago. I mean, I'm sure you heard the same thing, that it was going to be like Kenny Payne within 2 weeks. Like he was there, he was interviewing, like all these rumors spreading almost as soon as the job opened, and nothing happened. And there's just a lot of whispers about other people having interest, or the school having interest in some people, and maybe Kenny's not as interested as people make it seem. Louisville is maybe not as interested in him as people make it seem. There's just a lot of these rumors going around that, and I'm not saying he's not going to end up getting the job, but it does not seem as, he does not.
How much of that
to get it?
But how much of that is
purposeful misdirection or something like that? Is that
no? I think how much of that is that they're trying to get Mick Cronin right now.
All right. Well, so let me ask you this: do you believe any of the Scott Drew whispers?
I don't.
No. Me neither.
Zero.
I don't really understand why
he doesn't fit in Louisville at all. Now, again, like he wasn't pursued by Indiana last year when he should have been. So maybe Scott Drew was saying, you know what?
He couldn't leave Baylor after winning the title.
No, but he never even got called. So what I'm saying is maybe he wants to be stroked a little bit here by somebody else, by Louisville. showing some interest after Indiana didn't even show it last year. Listen, I don't think there's any way Scott Drew goes to Louisville. I think it's Kenny Payne or Mick Cronin, and ultimately they're going to do a little dance with Mick Cronin.
Well, so here's my thing on Cronin. Like, I feel like if he was interested, they would know by now. That's kind of how I feel. I feel like they would have made, their dozens of calls on him already, and they would know if he had legit interest. And I don't know, but the interim AD coming out a couple weeks ago and saying we want somebody in place when our season ends, being Louisville's season.
Sure,
it kind of added a little fuel to the people that think Kenny Payne is the guy, and it's almost done. But I mean, I've spoken to people that
he's an interim AD. Borzello, he's an interim AD. How many times has he done this?
0.
Correct.
Fair. I will say that there are people that pretty close to the situation that know that he's been making calls in the past few days. Just trying to feel people out and get some more information. And there, I mean, it's almost impossible to say that it's done to Kenny Payne at this point. I still think if I had to put money down, he'd be the favorite, but I don't think it's nearly as close as people thought a month ago.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Mick Cronin's buyout is almost $12 million. Okay, so Louisville's going to have to pay a significant part of that.
He's also making 4 at UCLA.
Yeah, but Louisville can pay. I mean, listen,
but I'm just saying
Louisville can pay 7 if they want to.
So it's a pretty big payout.
It is, but you're talking Louisville. They've got a ton of money. They don't have
the same money. They don't have the same money that you had like 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
No, but they have more money than UCLA to pay a coach.
Yeah,
clearly.
Yeah.
And the question is, if you're Mick Cronin, would you rather be on the West Coast at UCLA where you've already rebuilt this thing and you've got it going, or would you rather go to Louisville where you're from?
Closer to home, yeah.
Closer to home. However, and Tio, you can weigh in on this one. Louisville does not have a permanent AD. They don't have a president. They still don't know what their NCAA situation is going to be. If I'm Mick Cronin, I might do the dance right now, but I'm not going with that other girl. I'm not going with her back home because I don't know what the hell is going to happen with their AD, with their president, with the NCAA stuff.
It's not the top 10 job it was 5 years ago. Right this second, it's not.
Right.
Yep. The thing that makes it, you guys were talking about, pay difference and everything like that. My first thought was, man, you live in Louisville, it's going to be a lot cheaper than living out in LA. Plus the extra $3 million if they're willing to come off of $7 million a year. There's just too much up in the air. And he does have it going right now at UCLA. They're recruiting at a high level. Does Mick want to come back home? I think that's the biggest thing. But at the same time, like no AD, like no university president.
Yeah.
You can't go. If you're Mick Cronin, you can't. To me, you can think about it all you want. You can't, unless you hate your AD, Martin Jarmon, you can't leave. That's the only way you would leave a situation like UCLA is you're not getting along with the administration, which I'm told is not the case.
I've heard he likes it out there.
Yeah,
he does. Not as much as he likes.
How can you not?
In the Midwest, right? I 100% agree.
All right, moving on. Maryland, the second biggest job open, probably the second biggest job that's gonna open this year. You can arguably. I mean, listen, we'll see what else pops, but we'll talk about Georgetown a little bit. But Mark Turgeon quits on his team earlier this year, and not much has happened with Damon Evans. He's made some calls, obviously. He's trying to figure it out, swinging for the fences a little bit here. But you're not going to be able to get Nate Oates and his $12 million buyout. You're not going to be able to get, I think, Ed Cooley, certainly based on what he's done at Providence this year. I don't think he leaves for Maryland. We'll talk again about Georgetown in a little while because I think it would be more likely he would leave for Georgetown. But
is he not a candidate at Louisville? Is he not a candidate at Louisville?
I have not heard his name. I don't think he fits in Louisville, to be honest. I don't think he would leave Providence for Louisville. Even again, he's got an AD coming in there, and I don't know if you met him when you were at Providence, Theo, but he's been there forever, and Eddie gets along with him great. Like, not good. This guy is a star and a great sales guy, and he knows everybody. Cooley's not going anywhere anytime soon. He's just not. All right, so Maryland. Who are your names, Borzello, besides Andy Enfield is the one that we hear over and over and over.
That's
Are you buying that?
So the two names that kind of popped up when the job first opened in early December were Andy Enfield, Kevin Willard. And 3 months have passed, and it's like you're kind of still with those two names. And that's weird to me. Like, I feel like there's a dark horse somewhere that we just haven't heard about yet. And I don't know who it is. I wish I did. But I'm like, hey, I don't think Ed Cooley would take it. And so I think you go to that next tier. And the only two names that I keep hearing are Andy Enfield and Kevin Willard. I mean, there were some Eric Musselman rumors last week. I don't think he would take it. He's got 2 top 10 kids coming in next year. Yeah. And so I tend to think it ends up being Enfield or Kevin Willard. Personally, I mean, Willard has a little bit more experience recruiting that area. But I mean, Enfield's had a hell of a year. He's had a hell of a 3-year stretch now. But again, I got to think there's some sort of wild card that we just haven't really heard a lot about yet.
Tio, you got any names? You got any suggestions for Damon Evans at Maryland?
I got nothing, guys. I'm going to sit most of this one out because a lot of this, I don't have all this inside information, but I will say something about the Maryland job. Like,
sure,
if it gets cracking and like that fan support is unbelievable. I know that they don't have the funds that a lot of other places do, especially at their level. But at the same time, it's got to be a fun job like if you're able to get that rocking. It's a big if. It's a big if. But your recruiting base right there at Maryland, you got that entire Northeast. Kids grow up in DC wanting to play at Maryland, and I think that's a big part of it.
Got to be thick-skinned. You know, we should have brought SVP on for a quick segment here of Maryland. He may be going live after this Baylor Texas game, so I don't know if he could pull it off.
You got the cheap bald guy. That's what happened.
Yeah, we did.
We got the cheap bald guy.
Yes. We got the one that's not as plugged into the Maryland job. Trust me.
That's right.
Our boy SVP. He claims he doesn't know what's going on, but I'm telling you, he's on that search committee. There's no question in my mind. He is high up on that search committee because he introduced. I don't know if you guys saw last night. He introduced the 2002 team with Gary Williams. So, all right, next one. And we'll bounce around. We'll probably, for those that want more hot seat talk after this, we will talk it in the afters. So this is going to be a late edition with Borzello and Tio. Tio's going to be educated a little bit. He's going to have to probably have some more caffeine to get through the show. But Patrick Ewing at Georgetown. I still believe, Borzello, that Georgetown is a top 20-ish job in America. I know people kill me for it. Providence fans think Providence is a better job than Georgetown. They're out of their friggin' minds. But Georgetown, just because they've sucked lately doesn't mean it's not a top 25 job. It means the coaches haven't done what they should do at that spot. And that's JT3 at the end. And Patrick Ewing, now in his 5th season, they're 0-17 in the Big East. They made the tournament last year, but really there was a lot of luck involved with them making that run. They've been basically irrelevant for his 5 years for the most part.
They have to take the DC area recruiting back from Villanova. Like that's the biggest part.
Totally.
That's how they become a top 20 job, top 15 job in the country again, is if they get that recruiting base back. There's a ton of talent there, but if you're a top 25, top 50 kid that wants to play Big East basketball, you're going to play at Villanova. That's just how it's been for the last 5, 7, 8 years. And so I think that's going to be the biggest key for the next guy. But I mean, Ewing, I think they had 9 wins before the Big East tournament run last year. Right. They're probably going to end up 0-20 in Big East games this season. Like that's just, that's hard. Like it's hard to survive. But the problem is, can you really fire Patrick Ewing? And he said in the press conference, I think it was yesterday, that he wants to come back next year. Now I don't know what he would have said if he really wanted to quit. You're not announcing it with 2 weeks left in the season. Mm-hmm. But the rumor is they're going to ask him to make staff changes. If you're Patrick Ewing, you could say, I don't need this job. I'm not firing my friends. I'm just not going to do this. And then maybe Georgetown parts ways with him. Right. I mean, I just think after an 0-20 year, given the, I guess, lack of success he's had since he's taken over, to me, I mean, it's hard to make a case that he deserves to stay another year. Whether he will, that's a
come on. If his name wasn't Patrick Ewing, he'd be fired.
No, I said that.
Right.
I know. I said
he'd be gone.
Fire Patrick Ewing. Yes.
Right.
100% agree. I would lean. I still lean that it's going to open. If you ask me to pick yes or no, I say yes.
Me too.
I mean, there's just
all right. If it does, I'm going to give you one, and we're going to go to break here in a minute.
You're going to give Ed Cooley, aren't you?
No, because I don't think he'll take it.
Okay.
But he is the first name I would call 100%. Wouldn't even be close. If honestly, if I was Lee Reed, I'd be driving down to Ed Cooley's house in Providence with all the cash, legitimately loaded with cash.
Just meet him in the garden next week. Done.
How can you turn this down? Georgetown, look at all the players. Check out our practice facility. Now, Providence is a beautiful practice facility now. The history at Georgetown, again, the dearth of talent in the area that you could drive to within an hour. But again, I don't think Ed Cooley does it at the end of the day because of the season he's having at Providence and that he is from there. So who do you go with? Ed Cooley says no. Who's your next call?
Who's your name? You're very excited about this name. Who's your name? I don't know.
I would go Dennis Gates. That was
going to be my name too. So yeah. I wish I stole it from you. I mean,
we're in agreement.
I think he has to take a job this spring.
Yes. And that one is the best one he could get. I know
100%. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's some SEC jobs that we'll talk about in the afters, and we'll go through Georgia, South Carolina, Mississippi State, Missouri,
maybe
Ole Miss,
yeah,
Florida, and hopefully not Florida.
I will give a passionate defense of Mike White when we talk Florida.
Me too. Listen, I'm there with you 1,000% on that one. But listen, Scott Strickland at Florida, all I know is the dude brought in, I say this all the time and people laugh at me. The dude brought in Rick Ray to clean up the mess left behind by Rick Stansbury, and he fired the dude 3 years later. So I never know what to expect out of Scott Strickland. Give me the job. Does Tom Crean have any shot of surviving this with all the bullshit that's gone on lately with assistant coaches and staff members? Is there any chance Tom Crean can last beyond year 4?
I say no. And then that's the one job where, I mean, a lot of the jobs we're going to talk about now and on the afters, we're going to say it can still go either way. And, it's trending toward one direction or the other. George is the one where I would say 100% it's going to open. Fact, 100% it's going to open. And I do think a favorite is already emerging. It would be Jonas Hayes. That just seems to be the name.
Interesting.
The name that keeps popping up talking to anybody is Jonas Hayes. Dennis Gates is another name, and Todd Golden's another name.
Yep.
But Jonas Hayes seems to be the kind of the consistent name that keeps popping up in conversations about the job. They want to take that Atlanta recruiting back. Now, I don't know if that's really a way to have sustained success in Georgia, but I do think that they have to do a better job of keeping talent home.
Yeah, I talked to one coach who's very familiar with that area, and he said, be careful. Yep. Be careful recruiting in Georgia, because a lot of those dudes that have come out of Georgia. Now, there's been a lot of really good ones too, but a lot of them have not panned out. All right, we got about a minute left in this Baylor-Texas game. Baylor up 8. When we come back from the break, I'll tell you why I still think, and I keep flip-flopping on them, but I still think the Baylor Bears can get back to the Final Four.